Lesson 1-6, Parallel and Perpendicular Lines. Alright, now we're going to talk about two key terms here, parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Now parallel means that you have two lines that run alongside each other and never cross. Perpendicular lines means they cross, but they cross in a special way, and that is that when they intersect or cross, they create a right angle. That's perpendicular. Now when we have these two cases, we have some information that can go along with it. One is that parallel lines have the same slopes, otherwise they would not stay parallel. They have to have rise and run exactly the same. That's what keeps them apart all the time. Perpendicular have what's called opposite reciprocal slopes. Now again, we can say this because they intersect at right angles. That makes them special. So opposite reciprocal means the opposite sign. It does not imply negative, it just means opposite. And reciprocal means to flip the fraction. So here we have a slope of 4 over 1 if you consider it a fraction. Reciprocal would be 1/4, opposite would be negative. But note that if I gave you a slope of negative 3/4, the opposite reciprocal of that would be positive 4/3. Again, opposite does not imply negative. It just means opposite. Alright, note, you can write an equation of lines parallel or perpendicular to a given line if you know a point on the line and an equation of a given line. So first write, just a hint here, first write the equation in point-slope form again and then change it to slope-intercept form. Let's see what that looks like. Alright, so here we have some key things we have got to pay attention to. Parallel. Parallel means same slope. So we're going to write a line, and we're going to use point slope form here. Y minus y1, here's x1, here's y1, a negative 5 equals the slope. Well, if you're parallel to it, you're going to take exactly the same slope and put it in. And then x minus x1. So they could have just said the slope is 7/3, but they kind of hid it here. So this is not much different than the previous questions we've been working on. Okay, so I want to clean this up a little bit. Okay, because minus negative is positive. So we want to put it in slope-intercept form, so we distribute. And 7/3 times 3. 7/3 times 3, which is the same as 3 over 1. Top times top, which is 21. Bottom times bottom, which is 3. And that comes out to be 7. So plus 7. Subtract 5. Again, I'm looking at like terms here, so I cannot put that with the x term, and that gives us this equation. That line is parallel to this line and goes through that coordinate. Next one, parallel again. So I'm going to go y minus y1, here's x1, y1. Y minus 2 equals my slope. Well, this has a slope of 1. If it's not written in there, we assume it's 1 in front of the x. So I want to keep the same slope here. And then x minus x1. So x minus negative 3. So if I clean it up, it looks like x plus 3. Distribute. The 1 does nothing to it. Add 2 to both sides. And now we have the answer for this one. Y equals x plus 5. Y equals x plus 5 is parallel to this line and goes through that coordinate. Now here we have a unique situation. Parallel to that. Well, if this is the line y equals 3, we're talking about a line that is horizontal. Slopes of horizontal lines are 0. So I'm going to go y minus y1. So y1 is negative 3. The slope is 0. And then x minus x1, or negative 5. So if I clean it up, I get that. Now if I take and distribute the 0, we get 0. So we solve for y. So the line y equals 3, y equals negative 3, excuse me, is parallel to this line and goes through that coordinate. So it'll be down here. Now perpendicular, we got to pay close attention to what they're asking. Parallel is good. So it's pretty straightforward, but don't miss the directions and get used to just doing parallel. If you see perpendicular, you have to take something into account. Again, I'm going to say y minus, so here's x and y, x1, y1, y minus y1 equals slope. Now, if it's parallel, we take this, but it's not parallel, it's perpendicular, so we have to change it. We want the reciprocal of it and the opposite sign. So it's positive 9/4, it becomes a negative 4/9. And then in parentheses x minus x1. So we clean it up. Distribute. Now, negative 4/9 times a negative 5. We go ahead and top times top, and we get positive 20. Bottom times bottom, we get 9. So 20 over 9 positive. We subtract 2. And I believe if we put that together, 20/9 minus 2 would be, I think 20/9 is the same as 2. 20/9 is the same as 2 and 2/9. So if you take away 2, you just end up with 2/9. So plus 2/9. And that would be your answer in slope-intercept form. And that line is perpendicular to this line and goes through that coordinate. So again, perpendicular meaning here's one line, here's the other. They create a right angle. Let's try perpendicular again. Again, pay close attention to what they're giving you and what they're asking for. Y minus y1 equals slope. Okay, well their slope is 1/3. We change it to 3 over 1 and opposite sign. So I'm just going to write negative 3. And then x minus x1. So y minus 1 equals, if I distribute it, negative 3x. This is, I forgot that step, sorry about that, plus, so minus negative is plus, so negative 3 times a positive 2 is negative 6. Add 1, and we get negative 3x minus 5. With one more question, now again, I should clarify again, this equation, this line is perpendicular to this line and goes through that coordinate. Example 6. Now this one's interesting because the line y equals 0. The line y equals 0 is right here. Y-intercept is 0, and it just happens to be that line. Now, a line perpendicular to that means I have to take the slope of that line. Well, the slope of a flat line or horizontal line is 0. So if I take the reciprocal of that, I will get 1 over 0, which we cannot do. It's undefined. But it does tell you that it's going to be, this symbol means implies, a vertical line. All vertical lines are of the form x equals something. Well, what do you think that is right here? Well, we need a coordinate to decide that. The coordinate is 4, -3. So 4, -3 is right here. It's a vertical line, so what is the equation of that line going to be? It's going to be the x value of the coordinate. And that line is perpendicular to that line, and it creates a right angle. Alright, this ends lesson 1-6.